How you going, guys? How you going today? It's Justin Allen here with my Good Advice channel. Here to give you good advice for a better future. Right, today I'm talking about compounding. Look, we all want to achieve financial freedom one day. We all don't want to just be thinking like, is this it? Is this all life's going to bring us? Just working, 9 to 5 for the rest of our life, and then, trying to make do with whatever we end up with. We want to, how good it'd be if you could retire as young as possible, and then after that you could just work part-time and still get ahead just working 20 hours a week or something like that. So you got to realize, like, compounding is how the people get rich for investing. So I'll give you an example. Like, for example, if you were to plant a tree at 10 years old, for example, by the time you retired, the average person gets old about, say 60 years old. Imagine how big that tree would have grown. So it's the same with compounding. The earlier you start the tree, the bigger it'll grow. But if you plant that tree when you're at 30 years old, it's definitely not going to be as big as the tree that started earlier. So you got to realize that that's one of the, what I'm trying to explain to you guys how compounding works. I've done this channel for good advice to help everybody out there to have a better life. Like I say, I really want people to achieve financial freedom. From the bottom of my heart, I really want people to achieve it. But you got to have self-discipline to be smart with your money. You got to realize, even though your money, you got access to a lot of money in your bank account, doesn't mean you go off and spend it. You got to reinvest it so your money compounds and works for you, because that's a big part of investing. The more money you have, the more it compounds and the more it works for you. So you got to look at each dollar is like an employee working for you hard to bring you back more money. So in the beginning, you really got to delay the gratification. So basically that means you got to sort of not only buy what you really need in the beginning to get things off to a huge level. So say if you only had, say $50,000 working for you invested, it's still not going to give you a high return. So you really need to imagine, say you had $2 million, right, invested it, say, into rental properties, and you had a loan on top of that. But you can imagine the return, what you're going to be getting from that money will be far greater, and you'll be far above the system. So you basically, I hate to say it, but the way the system works is you've got to work your ass off and work really hard to get your first $1 or $2 million, and then after that the money's sort of working for you, and it makes it a lot easier. You've got a secondary help. In the beginning you haven't got that much help. So how do I like to explain with compounding, right? Compounding basically is really when you just have self-discipline to reinvest the profits, to not spend the profits. You got to have so much self-discipline. Like, a lot of people easily, if they earn more money, they just spend more money. But if you earn more money and you're investing more money, and then you're earning more money for your investments, and then you're investing more money, if you understand what I'm talking about, you understand that that's how your assets will grow and grow, or a business will grow and grow. So a simple way to explain it would be with money in the bank. If you put your money in the bank, say you had a small amount invested, for just as for an example, and you're getting $200 a month in interest. So the bank would pay you that amount of money on top of what you had in there, and then the following month you had that invested plus that $200 on top of what you had there. And then if you reinvested it again and again and again, the money's going to eventually go up very slowly. It'll go up, say, $220, eventually go up to $250, eventually go up to $300. It'll just keep growing. But the moral is there's a power of compounding if you reinvest. And you can do accelerants. So in that case, if you put more money in there, you'd get even bigger return and compound at a much faster rate. And the same principle applies to doing anything. You can, like, if you were to buy, say, shares, and you reinvested the money and didn't spend it, it would grow. And it's the same with, like, if you started up a business. Say you started up a business, you got into debt for it, you pay down the business, and you don't spend the profits, you delay the gratification, you wait till you've got your wealth and assets and business or whatever to a certain level where, you know, it's sort of the ratio of what money's coming in is covering your expenses quite comfortably, and then you can afford to buy your toys later on in life, say 10 years down the track, because you've got help to pay for them. So you've got to remember it all comes down to the ratio of what you earn, really. And a lot of people forget, like what something could have bought them. If that money had been invested and they bought something that's not a liability or not a toy, that they're going to just slow down the process of becoming wealthy. And the more you earn, the more your investments should be growing. And most people, that's one reason why a lot of people are poor. The more they earn, the more they find ways to spend it on stuff that's not going to get them out of the rat race, buy them freedom. So you got to have a lot of self-discipline, and when you see money, to see financial freedom, to see that this money's my ticket to quitting my job and working less hours, or take time off and having another form of income coming in. So a lot of people, you know, that's one reason why a lot of people are poor. You know, you got to realize that you got to stick to a budget. It's really, I can see a lot of people would have trouble doing this. You got to really live like you're on the dole, even though you're making 100,000 a year. But you don't have to do it forever. You do it for, say, 10 years, and then after that you have an extra, you know, 100,000 coming in the bank, and you don't have to live like that anymore, because you constantly got your assets working for you, money working for you, bringing you back more money. So then you can afford to do it. But if you do it in the beginning, you for example, could have invested, say, 100,000, and that, you know, into over a period of time, say you could have invested that, and that could have turned into $1 million. But if you chose to spend that money on like going on holidays and toys and buying stuff on the internet and going to shopping centers and buying fishing boats and just finding stuff that you know, it's not really going to achieve your goal of financial freedom, they're just going to give you short-term happiness. You got to stick to a budget. So basically, another way of compounding works, it can work in real estate too. So say you buy a property, and you could do this exactly the same process of before with property. So you imagine, right, example, say you had a property and then you bought it at below market value, so it went up, you know, you had a bit of equity there, and then that property would go up, and then fast forward a couple of years, and say you sold it in 2 years time, you would have got a bit of equity, plus it would have gone up a bit, and say you bought just a reasonably priced house, so you could easily afford it, and then eventually sold it, and then you bought another house, and then eventually each time you reinvest the profits, don't spend it, eventually you could start off, say, with a $400,000 house, and then you could eventually turn it into $1 million house through just being like smart with, like, putting a bit of time into studying the market, working out what the recommended retail price for the house is, and doing your own valuation of it, and work out the maths before you buy the property. So, and then you got to work out the maths, the repairs, the stamp duty, before you even put the offer in. And if the maths doesn't add up, you know, you're going to be screwing yourself. The main way people become rich is through buying low and selling high as well too. That's the main reason how businesses work. If they're buying high and selling high, that they're making no money, and then they're just going to be going out of business. it's keep this in mind. Like, it's the same with like lots of things. Like, you could do it. You got to imagine, like, say you bought a car for cheap, right? Say you bought a car that had $1,000 worth of profit in it, and you worked out the maths, and then the maths stated that you would make $1,000 profit, say off a $5,000 car. You picked it up for say $3,700. You spent $300 and tidied it up, and you learned what it'd be worth before you bought it, and you studied, like, worked out analysis of what the repairs would be, and then if you sold the car and then you got say $1,000 profit, and then you reinvested that profit, did not spend a cent of it into the next car and bought a more expensive car because you had that extra $1,000 profit, and then if you keep repeating the process and repeating the process, you eventually end up with say a $20,000 car, but you didn't pay $20,000. You hunted around, you snapped up a good deal, you had the money already, you trained yourself how to find a good deal, and then you snap it up for say 15, and then you put 500 in it, and then you've made 4,500, and you just keep repeating the process and repeating the process, and you got to let the maths decide whether you buy it and work out. It's the same with a house. You got to ask the maths for permission, work it out, because you can easily work out something in a couple of hours, for example, rather than get stuck into a deal, and then it's going to take you a lot longer than a couple of hours to sell the property or sell the car, and you could be going to all that trouble of buying it for nothing, and you're not going to be getting the deal you're looking for. But you can see the power of compounding. If you just keep reinvesting your profits, say in the car, and then you eventually buy another car, or buy multiple cars, or buy a more expensive car, and that's how the rich get richer. And it's the same with like a business. You can compound in business. You pay off the business, and then you basically work for peanuts, loose change, and you just reinvest the money into your next business, and then you reinvest that money into the next business. So you can imagine, like, say you had a business, $200,000 in debt, and then the business was producing 50 grand, then you'd pay off the debt, and then you'd go off and then go start up another business or the same business, and then you pay off the debt again, and then the money's compounding, and then eventually you're going to have two businesses, and then they're both going to be making 100,000. So then you're going to speed up the process. It's the same with rental properties. The more properties you have, and the more money you have working for you, you can make even more money. Say you're making 200 a week profit off your rental property because you've paid down the mortgage, and after all the fees of running the property, the real estate cuts and the rates and all that, say you were making the $200 a week, and eventually you reinvest that money into buying another rental property, and then eventually that house will be paid off, and then you'll have a similar, say, priced house, and you'll be making $400. Then you'll have $400 working for you like an employee, working hard. Your dollar will be working hard for you to bring back more money. So you got to keep in mind, like, the more you earn, the more your investments grow, the more people you have them working for you, more it will speed up the process, and that's how compounding works. So you got to have self-discipline to not spend the money, because if you spend the money, you're going to stuff up how the system of compounding works. Alright guys, have a great day. Bye.